Support comes from Sunday Morning Cafe, founded by researcher, speaker, and therapist Dr. Tom Wagner, offering mini retreats with live music and online resources to build resilience and community. SundayMorningCafe.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. On June 9th, 3 immigrants from Collinsville were detained by ICE after a traffic stop in central Illinois. Teens Jesus Alexis Cruz and Hector Cruz Sanchez, along with 23-year-old Gabriel Jonathan Gonzalez Godoy, were on their way to work when they were stopped just outside Morrisonville in Christian County. All 3 were in the country without legal status, but now a new trove of records obtained by St. Louis Public Radio reveals the minute-by-minute breakdown of the traffic stop and sheds light on conversations among local law enforcement. Joining us now to explain more is STLPR's visuals editor, Brian Munoz, who's been reporting on this story. Brian, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Elaine.
So let's start with the why. Why were these 3 immigrants from Collinsville stopped?
So Hector, Gabriel, and Jesus were driving to work, and they were along Illinois Route, I believe it was 48, to get to their final destination, and they passed Morrisonville Police Chief Robert Ayton. He says in his police report, hey, this license plate got flagged for having an expired registration. So he went and pulled them over. Mm-hmm. This wasn't the teens, the 2 teens and the 23-year-old's work truck. This was their boss's work truck that had an expired registration. Mm-hmm. So they got pulled over.
And what kind of work were they on their way to do?
Yeah, so to my understanding, they were on the way to lay some internet fiber wire. There was a big spool of orange cable on a trailer that they were towing in this white GMC pickup truck.
Mm-hmm. Now, none of these folks that you've talked about, they did not have valid driver's licenses, and the Morrisonville police chief had their vehicle towed, but he did give them a warning and then drove them to a nearby Casey's gas station. Why did he do so?
Yeah, that's a good question. I tried to speak to Chief Ayton there in Morrisonville. I sent him several emails trying to get an interview. He didn't respond to any of them. I went by in person, tried to meet with him, and he was not available for a number of reasons. Mm-hmm. But, looking on the outside in, folks that I've spoken to said, hey, well, they let him off with a warning. He was being a nice guy and wanted to help them. He didn't want to leave them on the side of this rural Illinois road. They probably don't know anybody there. So the county sheriff there in Christian County told me. So Chief Ayton turned around and said, I'll take you somewhere where you can sit in AC, get some food, water, wait for your boss to pick you up. And they went and dropped them off at the nearby Casey's.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the records that you obtained was an audio recording of the Morrisonville Police Chief, Robert Ayton, and Sergeant Robert Goebel of the Christian County Sheriff's Department. Let's take a listen.
I told him, I said, I'm not writing you a ticket, but no more driving until you get a driver's license. Bill, oh, okay, thank you. then the English comes out.
Yeah, then English comes out, those motherfuckers. You're giving them good.
So we hear Sergeant Goebel refer to the immigrants as MFers. What does that tell you, Brian, about the law enforcement response?
That's a good question, Elaine. And I think one of the reasons I included this clip was after reviewing, probably 60 radio traffic clips and a majority of them being redacted, watching several hours of video. This was the very last interaction. So I don't know that it necessarily definitively tells me something about their response, but it was something that definitely made my ears perk up when I heard it. Like, come on, guys, you're law enforcement. This, isn't language I would expect to hear.
What did the Christian County Sheriff say about the language, Brian?
So I talked to, as you mentioned, Christian County Sheriff Bruce Kettlecamp, and he basically chalked it up to banter between the two officials. You know, it was after the stop. They had dropped them off. They'd let them off with a warning while they did tow the truck. You know, they could have taken him in, could have done any number of things, and said, you know, you got to realize we deal with a lot of people that essentially lie to us. So, you know, when Chief Ayton is talking to them and they're like, oh, we don't know English, etc. And then they turn around and say, oh, thank you, after they're told that they're not getting a ticket. You know, presumably law enforcement was a little frustrated, and that came out in the recording is essentially what he said. But he defended their actions and said they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't call ICE. They didn't do anything they weren't supposed to do, and blamed this as a case of the media going after law enforcement unnecessarily.
Mm-hmm. So the not calling ICE part, I want to return to what happened. Now, these 3 immigrants from Collinsville, they are on their way to Casey's gas station, and then ICE agents show up. So did the police call ICE?
So the officers, I guess Morrisonville Police Chief Rob Ayton does not say that he contacted federal immigration officials. Sheriff Kettlecamp in Christian County vehemently denies any allegation that they called immigration officials, because that would be a violation of several Illinois laws that restrict or stymie local law enforcement from working on enforcement of federal immigration laws or detaining individuals for ICE, things of that nature that you do see here in Missouri. So from all intents and purposes, they say no. The report and the records that I've obtained so far say no. Again, they're heavily redacted. I've submitted a request for review with the Illinois Attorney General's office to make sure there wasn't anything redacted that shouldn't have been. But, you know, that's kind of the running thing at the moment. Until we learn otherwise, the answer right now is no.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Illinois Trust Act is something that prohibits local law enforcement agencies from assisting federal immigration agencies with civil immigration enforcement. Brian, what do you know about the consequences that there could be for local police if that act is violated?
Right, and this is a measure in a plethora of laws that Illinois has passed to really clamp down on local law enforcement working with the federal government. I think one thing that comes to mind is Operation Midway Blitz and just kind of the chaos that showed in suburban Chicago there at the Broadview facility. You know, so the consequences can vary. I mean, it could be anywhere from financial repercussions and fines that ultimately weigh on the taxpayer, to investigations by the Attorney General's office. It just really depends on what the violation is and what the folks, I guess, in the AG's office want to pursue.
Mm-hmm. So under what circumstances then, if the police did not call ICE, did ICE agents end up showing up?
So the Christian County Sheriff's Office, prior to speaking to Sheriff Kettlecamp, said, hey, this is just a coincidence. You know, they got dropped off and some folks from ICE were driving back, presumably from the Taylorville Correctional Center is what they said. And they stumbled into them and, you know, ICE did their job, asked questions and took them in. Sheriff Kettlecamp, when I spoke with him recently, also doubled down on that and said, hey, you have to understand Morrisonville, if you're driving from St. Louis to the Taylorville Correctional Center, Morrisonville is right on the way. So if someone wants to stop, get some gas, get a drink, some pizza, whatever, they could very easily pull off one of the cases there. And he doubled down, as I mentioned, that this just was a coincidence.
Mm-hmm. And you did try to glean some insight from folks at Casey's too, right? What did you hear?
Yeah, so it's in person, went and spoke to some folks at the Casey's, and they said they hadn't seen anything. I later called the Casey's, and the gal that picked up the phone, mm-hmm. Said she hadn't seen anything, but she's like, oh, let me put my manager on the line. And I explained to the manager, hey, I'm just trying to find out what happened to these 3 immigrants, etc. And she very quickly panicked and was like, you have to call corporate. Anything you want to do, anything you want to know, you have to call corporate. Mm-hmm. And hung up.
Yeah.
So I sent several emails to Casey's corporate, and they did not respond.
We shouldn't overlook, of course, what has happened with the 3 who were detained. Where are Cruz Sanchez, the teens, and 23-year-old Gonzalez Godoy now?
Yeah, so the youngest, the 16-year-old Cruz, he was, and I guess one of the reasons I started reporting the story was advocates were saying, hey, this 16-year-old teen from Collinsville got taken by ICE. He's being transported to a facility in Texas. We don't know by who, under what authority. We don't know where he's going. His family can't get in touch with him. Advocates say an aunt and uncle showed up to the ICE office in St. Louis and tried to get information, say, hey, release him to us, and they wouldn't do it, etc. So he got transported to Texas. I spoke to Representative Nikki Benziski, Democrat representing Springfield and Illinois' 13th District, about this case, and her office said that 16-year-old got transferred to the Office of Refugee Resettlement, which one of the things that office does is place unaccompanied, quote, alien minors or folks without legal status into some kind of foster system, whether that's a foster shelter, foster care. They try to look at the child holistically and try to find a spot for them. That office regularly does not disclose what youth are in their custody. But to my understanding, folks haven't been able to get in touch with him.
What has the community's reaction been to this, and also the family's response?
Yeah, the community response has been mixed. Of course, there are immigration hawks who, believe, hey, they were in the country without legal status. They shouldn't be here whatsoever. But there are some other folks that are saying, there's a minor involved. We need a little more accountability. We need to know what happened to this child. And I think with the other 2 men, I'm sorry I didn't mention, Godoy and Cruz Sanchez were initially transferred to St. Genevieve, but Godoy was deported to Mexico, according to federal records. And Cruz Sanchez, last time I checked, was in a processing facility in Texas, about to be deported to Honduras as well. But yeah, I think there is just a lot of questions still, and the community response has been, we just want to know what happened to these people, and we want to make sure that everything was followed by the letter of the law.
Mm-hmm. Now, within the last 24 hours, Brian, there's been reporting about an immigration enforcement surge, with ICE arresting more than 10,000 people in the past 5 or 6 days. That's a significant increase, more than the norm. Now, this one stop in mid-June that you've been reporting about, it represents a drop in the bucket, sort of in the overall picture. Why is the Central Illinois stop something that you wanted to focus on, Brian?
Right. I think, with all of our immigration reporting at St. Louis Public Radio, we want to document what is going on in this space amongst our communities that we all live in, or within at least an earshot. If you're listening to this, we want to hear from you. But also, if we're not documenting this, then who is? Because there's just such a fast-changing landscape. I think you saw the Supreme Court's ruling around temporary protective status, and then upholding birthright citizenship, and the vow from the federal government to go through the legislative route, to change that. So I think part of our jobs as journalists is keeping folks accountable and showing, hey, this is what we found, first-person accounts, more than social media and whatever rumors may be floating around in a community. And I think that's one of the things that really motivated me, also because I'm interested in the motivations around people coming to this country. A 16-year-old working manual labor without legal status, who knows if he was even enrolled in school? Those are things that ping around in my mind on, what was someone's situation that you must have been in this position to make this choice? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Those were just a couple of the things that came to mind on why I wanted to report this.
Yeah. And as you alluded to earlier, and as we close here, there are people who'll be listening to this thinking those 3 people were in the country illegally. They don't belong here. Why is this story being covered? So the bottom line, why does this story matter? And is accountability, as you've noted, the main reason?
Yeah. And I know this has been a line of thinking that has been shared quite a bit on social media, and I think with this legal landscape changing so rapidly and so many people involved across the country, I think it's important to document, those individual lived experiences of folks that are wrapped up in all of this, like we would any other policy issue. We're not just reporting this, we're reporting other things at this organization as well. And I think, this adds to the deeper context that we want to share with our community and hopefully get some folks on common ground around this issue.
Brian Munoz is STLPR's visuals editor. You can find his latest work at STLPR.org.
Today's episode was produced by our executive producer, Alex Hoyer.
Audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Hi, I'm Laura Hamden, and my colleague Jessica Rogan and I are your daily hosts of the Gateway newsletter. We meet with the editors in the STLPR newsroom every weekday to bring you the top local stories of the day in a quick and easy 6-minute read by 6 a.m. In an age of overwhelm, it's a refreshing, thoughtful take on the news day, if we do say so ourselves. Fine-tune your daily news habit with the Gateway newsletter. Subscribe at stlpr.org/gateway.